show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. I just checking to see if you got your supply of horse wormer in.
Thankfully, yes. I was fresh out.
I know your wife works at a pet shop. I just wondered if she could get me a special deal on horse dewormer.
Sure. I'll pull some strings for you.
Can you believe we've got some of these anti-vaxxers? They won't take a vaccine, which we know may save their lives and the lives of others, but they're taking some horse dewormer. I mean, how does this stuff even exist? I don't understand it. And you're telling me some major podcaster is taking this stuff now and advising his listeners? Who is that?
So Joe Rogan is probably in the world of podcasting. There's none bigger than Joe Rogan. I mean, this is
bigger than me,
just a little bit, but yes, and I mean, like millions of people hang on. Like he's right up there with like Howard Stern and Rush Limbaugh as far as audience numbers, and like people hang on to his every word. There he is,
he's taking horse dewormer.
Yep.
He says that this will protect him from COVID.
Yep.
I have to tell you something. I believe in Darwin's theory of the evolution of the species, survival of the fittest. The problem is we don't have saber-toothed tigers anymore. These guys back in the cave, saber-toothed tigers used to get these guys, yes. But we don't have saber-toothed tigers or woolly mammoths anymore to get these guys. So they still exist out there. And not only do they exist, these buggers, but they breed. And apparently, in the case of this guy Rogan, they try to spew their stupidity on others. Unbelievable. I have to make something clear here. There seems to be a lot of misunderstanding out there. Okay, let's get something clear here when we're talking about the anti-vaxxers. No one is insisting that you obtain any kind of vaccine passport or certificate or anything of the nature. No one is making that mandatory. So let's get that off the table, okay? No one is going to force you to get any kind of certificate indicating your vaccine status. As I say, a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation about this. The Facebook and other social media just filled with stories about how, they're forcing this down on, this is Nazism. This is nonsense. Can I tell you something? If you don't want to take the vaccine, don't. Nobody's going to force you. Even Trudeau had to admit that he said that he used the word mandatory, but he didn't really mean it. He said, if you don't take it, well, there are going to be consequences, and he haven't spelled that out. But it's not mandatory. Nobody is going to come to your bedroom in the dead of night and give you the jab. And nobody is going to stop you, arrest you on your way to work and insist that you have this passport, certificate, or whatever the hell you want to call it. This is stuff and nonsense. You don't want to get vaccinated? Don't. You don't want to get a passport? Don't. No one's going to force it on you. It's not mandatory. And don't do it. It's not mandatory. You have a choice. Now, mind you, there are some consequences to your choice. There are consequences to every choice that we make in life. If you choose to speed on the highway, you may get arrested. You may end up crashing into a pole. If you choose to drink and drive, ditto. You may end up killing somebody else. This is your choice, but there are consequences to all of the choices. You may choose to speed through a stop sign, but there may be consequences. But the decision is up to you. And one of the consequences in the province of Ontario is going to be that if you don't have this vaccination and you don't have the certificate, which no one says you have to have, okay, let's stop this. It's not mandatory. It is strictly up to you. You don't want to get vaccinated? Don't. You don't want the passport? Don't get it, okay? But It means that you're going to be excluded from a lot of different things. I mean, if you have a right to say you don't want to be vaccinated, you don't want the certificate, then the business owner has the right to say, we don't want you in our business. It's a private business. I don't want you here. The Sens, the same thing. It's a privately owned company. He says, if you're not vaccinated, you're not getting into a Sens game. Ditto, I understand the Red Blacks. That's their right. You have a right not to get vaccinated, but he has a right to say, okay, you're not vaccinated, you can't come into my business. Hey, one right shouldn't supersede another, right? You have a right to say no, but so does the business owner have the right to say no, right? But somehow or other, this information is out there. I don't know if it's deliberate or not, that this is mandatory. And I have to point something out, and that is that O'Toole has never said that it will be mandatory. What he has said is that you get vaccinated, or if you do not, in certain teachers, for example, and long-term care workers, if you don't become vaccinated, as far as O'Toole is concerned, then you must be tested. In some cases, daily testing. But you don't have to get vaccinated. It is not mandatory. The jab is not mandatory. But there are consequences. I mean, if you're a worker in a long-term care, I think that the people in the long-term care and their relatives and other loved ones, I think they have a right to say, listen, you have a right not to be vaccinated, okay, but I have a right to say I don't want you next to my parents because you may present a risk to them. I mean, if you have the right to say no, don't the parents of the elderly have the right to say no? I would think so. Now, in that regard, I'm looking at the latest polls, and the polls are looking better and better almost every day for the Conservatives, surprising the hell out of a lot of people, including a lot of Conservatives, right? Excuse me, I'm taking too many pills to make me cough. But there's something that's very disturbing here. If the polls continue to show the way they are now, it would appear that once again the Conservatives will win the popular vote. Don't forget, Scheer won the popular vote, but because of the configuration of the various ridings, the Liberals won more ridings, and that is the way things are now. Now, if the trend continues, then it may very well be that the Conservatives may be able to pull off a minority. But the way things are now, it would appear that they're going to win the popular vote. But the Liberals probably will outnumber them very slightly in the number of seats. But you know what the difference is? And I address primarily, not exclusively, but primarily the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers here, many of whom have made it clear that they are supporting the People's Party. The People's Party right now is polling at 4.2%. Let me just say this. If the Conservatives had even half of that, if they had 2% of that, they would be well on their way to victory. So very clearly, you're going to vote for Max, Mad Max. You're going to vote for him primarily because he says he doesn't believe in vaccines. If you're going to, put the whole fate of the country because one guy says he doesn't believe in vaccines, then God help us all. But I suspect that in many cases, that's exactly what's happening. In fact, I see a lot of that on Facebook. Well, I'm voting for Max because he doesn't believe in vaccines. Really? Because what you're going to do is almost guaranteeing that Justin Trudeau is going to go back in again for another 4 or 5 years. You can talk all you want about, splitting the vote. That's exactly what's happening. If the Conservatives had the 4% that now appears to be going to the People's Party, they would win it handily. Handily. So you can vote for Max. You go ahead. That's your right. But in essence, you're voting for Trudeau. And I mean, Trudeau is even more adamant about mandatory vaccines than is O'Toole. So in voting for Max, this is what I don't understand with you people. In voting for Max, you are in fact voting for Trudeau, who is more adamant about making vaccines mandatory than is O'Toole. What you're doing is totally counterproductive. But if you want Trudeau back in again, vote for Max. 4.2% of you say right now you're going to do that. It's quite astonishing. It's also quite maddening. It's maddening to think that once again the Conservatives probably will win the popular vote, but the Liberals probably will slip back in again with a much smaller minority. But and unless and one of the things too that I must point out, last week after some of the stupid profane protests against Trudeau at a couple of ridings, I issued at that time a warning. I said, this is ridiculous. What you're doing is you're just playing right into Trudeau's hands. You're going to create a sympathy vote for him. And that's exactly what's happened. The only party that has lost a little bit of support in this last couple of days is the Conservatives. They lost a fraction of a percent. They came down. And guess who got it? The People's Party. So, I mean, look, O'Toole is doing a hell of a job. In fact, someone commented that so far he hasn't dropped an anvil on himself. But some of you people out there, you anti-vaxxers, you're dropping the anvil on it for him. But in so doing, you're supporting the guy that you want least of all. Use your freaking head. Jumping Joseph. I mean, you don't take the vaccine. Don't put the mask on. Vote for the People's Party. Vote whatever you want. But understand what you're doing. Please, please, please. John, we got any comments on any of this?
We absolutely do. We are on Twitch. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We're connected to email as well. Let's begin.
I would love to talk with somebody that's going to vote People's Party, because a lot of these people are nice people, but I don't think they understand what they're doing. Have a look at the polls. A vote for the People's Party for Max Bernier, who wants to destroy the family farm, by the way. A vote for him is a vote for Trudeau. Go ahead, John, please.
Comment in moments ago. Rick on Facebook says Bernier is promising freedom to choose. I don't believe he ever stood against vaccines. Let me see. Over here, we've got Arthur saying, not everyone who's against the passport is an anti-vaxxer. Paul says, so if a guy giving a woman a job interview says she won't get the job if she doesn't sleep with him, is it okay because she has a choice? Okay. Jim says, Lowell, mandatory by way of coercion. Chrissy on Twitch says, okay.
Hold it.
Yep.
Bullshit. You don't want the vaccine, don't get it. About 20% of the people in Ottawa don't have the vaccine, very clearly, because they don't want it. Nobody is forcing you. So stop this damn lie about it's mandatory coercion. Yeah, there are consequences, absolutely. But, I mean, if you have the right not to be vaccinated, then the business owner has the right to say, I can't take the risk of having you in my store. Go ahead, please, John. 613-413-2217 is the number. By the way, thank you for sharing these important conversations on your social media. We appreciate that. Ben, thank you. Your first time texter, 613-413-2217. I'd like to point out one of many broken election promises was to change the first past the post election system. Precisely. That was one of his major promise. That was one of Trudeau's major election promises, that he was going to change that system. But when he saw the results and realized that it was this system that gave him victory, because the Conservatives outpolled him, but it was this system gave him victory, he changed his mind. He broke his promise. You're absolutely right. Thank you.
Another text at 613-413-2217. First off, they say, really wished Facebook was working. I enjoy reading the comments. Facebook is working, but if it's not working for you, you can also go to youtube.com/blasttheradio or twitch.tv/blasttheradio, and you can see the comments posted there. Lowell, my vote is Conservative. No common sense. Chrissy says, okay, if you don't want the vaccine, fine, enough, your choice. Don't go crazy on social media about it. Leave us vaccinated ones to move on and get back to normal. Julie says, I don't want any more lockdowns, so pull up your big boy pants and big girl pants and get vaccinated. I need normal back. We've got Robert saying normal ain't coming back anytime, folks. Paul says, my riding is going to go Liberal no matter what, so I'll vote PPC, and it won't help the Liberals and hopefully send the Conservatives a message. And another person asking,
hold it. What message? What message would that be? Okay, what message would that be? That you voted for Trudeau? Is that the message that you want O'Toole to get? That you voted for Trudeau? Why? What has O'Toole done that you want a message? I mean, maybe there's something that you want to send him a message. He has never said that vaccines should be mandatory. He's never said that. He said, you don't have to, but if you don't, there are going to be consequences. Absolutely. Go ahead, please, John.
613-413-2217 is the number. Richard is asking, is Max mostly out west? Does he have any influence here in Eastern Canada, Lowell?
Oh, sure. He's out of Quebec. He's a Quebecer.
That's true. That is true. Terry says, crowds, please stop yelling at Trudeau. Instead, dress up as nursery rhyme characters and shout out nursery rhymes such as, okay, Terry, thank you very much. I love you, Terry, but sometimes. Let's get a word in for Shields, shall we here, Lowell?
Yes, sir. Shields. Okay, I've had a number of people inquiring. They're confused about this Energy Star business. This is a letter that has gone out to all appliance dealers, including Shields up in Pakenham. What they are saying is, here is I'll just read you a paragraph. Natural Resources Canada recently informed the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers that they intend to move forward. Where we heard that word before, move forward, to make federal mandatory energy standard levels equal Energy Star levels for all new home appliances by 2022. The proposal will affect washers, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators, and freezers to Energy Star levels. Appliances not meeting the Energy Star levels will be ineligible for sale. That includes today, 77% of freezers don't apply, 73% of clothes dryers, 39% of refrigerators, 37% of clothes washers, 12% of dishwashers do not meet Energy Star levels. So what Mark Shield is warning us is, look, all of those, in most cases, the non-Energy Star levels are the cheaper brands. The more, the brands that don't cost as much, they will no longer probably be available thanks to the federal government and the environmentalists. They're fighting this because they say that this is going to disproportionately affect low-income people who rely on more economical appliances. And these more economical appliances will not be available in all probability in Canada come the new year. So, folks, you're looking for some appliances, might be not a bad idea. Give Shields a call. They'll be able to fill you in a little bit more detail on this. The appliance dealers are fighting this, but so far it's a losing battle. Shields.ca. Yes, John, you got more texts coming in?
We do. Ray pointing out it's the government that says where you need the passport, not the businesses. I think he's saying don't take it out on the businesses themselves. And a lot of people are. Glenn says, I will not support any business that does not require vaccine passports. And he's put that in all caps, so he's serious. Carrie says, if you talk to Ford, can you ask, what about us snowbirds who got our shot in the States? Will we be able to use our vaccine card we got there? Or will we be able to use this card as proof to get the Ontario certificate?
Yeah. If you have FDA approved vaccines, absolutely, it will qualify. Absolutely.
Let me see. We've got Richard saying there are two choices in this election, Trudeau or O'Toole, and everyone else is a split. Things are quiet otherwise, Lowell.
All right. I have another topic here. Once again, I'd love to talk with you people in the People's Party. I understand your frustration. You seem to think somehow or other that Max is your hero. He doesn't agree with vaccines or masks, all the rest of it. But a vote for that's fine. But I mean, just understand. Vote for whom you wish, but just understand, please, who you really are voting for. If you vote for him, you are really almost guaranteeing a victory for Justin Trudeau. 4%. If the Conservatives had that 4% right now, or even half of that, they would be almost guaranteed a victory. Think of it, folks, when you're casting your ballot, okay? If you want Trudeau to win, then vote the People's Party. Another topic. Did you read Warren Kinsella's column in The Sun today, John?
I haven't had a chance to yet, no.
Wow. Warren Kinsella really, really hates Justin Trudeau. I mean, he hates Trudeau with a passion. You know what he called? I to be honest with you, I've never heard a syndicated columnist use this word to describe a Canadian prime minister before. He calls Justin Trudeau, quote, a creep. He goes through the whole litany of all of this so-called anti-feminist acts on behalf of the prime minister, including his own groping. I didn't realize, but it was Warren Kinsella who apparently brought this groping of the prime minister to light. I didn't realize it was him that did that. But if you read his column, but in the end, he goes through all of the things that Trudeau has done that very clearly is not in defense of women's rights. And his very last sentence is, how can anybody vote for this creep? Wow.
Wow, indeed.
This creep. And I'm going to tell you, he's not alone in his criticism. While she doesn't call the prime minister a creep, Jody Wilson-Raybould says anybody who doesn't take allegations of sexual misconduct against the Liberal candidate in Kitchener is, quote, not fit to lead. Actually, I have to tell you, this whole business of allowing Raz Sani, Saini, to continue to bear the Liberal colors in Kitchener Centre, I don't understand this. This guy has had not one, not two, not three, but 4 allegations of sexual misconduct against him, including one very serious one that was taken to the Human Rights Commission. Now, they're only allegations, I grant you that, but Trudeau has said repeatedly that any allegations, the women must be believed, and no candidate would be allowed to run for him. In the case of the Conservatives, they actually did this. As you know, an NDP candidate claimed that the Conservative candidate in one of the Nova Scotia ridings had put his hand up her skirt sometime a couple of years ago. And as just a mere allegation, O'Toole said, no, that's it. I can't have you running. We can't have anybody in my party with that allegation hanging over their head. So bingo, he's gone. But this guy, Raj Sanji, he's got 4 allegations, including much more serious ones, and Trudeau backs him. I mean, not only does he back him as a candidate, this guy has sat in Parliament. He's made laws for us for the past 5 years as a member of the Liberal caucus. It's quite astonishing. Jody Wilson-Raybould, she doesn't pull any punches, does she? He's not fit to lead. She says this is very serious. These allegations are very serious, should be taken seriously, and anybody who doesn't take them seriously is not fit to lead. Now, here's a woman who knows Trudeau personally, up close and personal. John, you have more texts coming in here.
On Twitch moments ago, Jim asking, what are the federal plans for national defense spending? No one is talking about that, and he wonders why. Text from Barry at 613-413-2217. Lowell, there are many fools that want to be against common sense and don't really listen to authorities, and as a result will do something stupid like voting for Mad Max. Over on Twitch, Julie says, I am so not paying attention to my meeting. Lowell is much more important today. Jim, whether or not I'm vaccinated is not anyone's business than mine. No passport, says Jim.
Well, just a minute. Hold it. Just a minute, Jim. That's all very well. You have a right not to be vaccinated, and you have exercised that right very clearly. However, if I have a loved one in long-term care that's very vulnerable, do I have the right to say that I don't think that you, or I don't want you tending my loved one? Do I have that right? Do I have the right to say, I believe that you present a risk? You're unvaccinated in the middle of a pandemic, and I don't want you treating my loved one in the long-term care or in hospital or wherever it is. Is that my right, or is it only you, Jim, who has a right? I hope Jim will respond to that, because I think it's a fair question. Is Jim the only one with rights here? How about the right of people to say, look, I can't have you next to me. I'm vulnerable. I'm undergoing chemo right now for cancer. I can't be vaccinated myself. I'm especially vulnerable. I can't take the risk of having you next to me. Is that not that person's right too? Jim, I hope you'll respond to that. John, have we any more? Yeah, go ahead.
He hasn't responded to that directly, but he does say, I'm supporting any business that doesn't care if I have a vaccine passport.
No, but that's fine. You don't have to support. That's what I'm saying. It's not mandatory. You don't. But does that business owner not have the right to say that he can't have you in his business because you present a risk to other people other people there, including his employees? Does that business owner not have the same right you? Are you the only one, Jim, who has the right here? Are you the only one who has the right of choice? I don't understand. Let me ask you this, Jim, and because when I'm speaking to Jim, I'm speaking to a lot of people. I have a very serious heart condition, and I have some other problems. I am very vulnerable. I'm 85 years old. I'm very vulnerable. I've had both shots. I've done everything we said. I wear the mask, do everything I'm supposed to. But I won't allow anyone in my house who hasn't been fully vaccinated. This, by the way, included my own sister before she had both vaccinations. I wouldn't allow her in the house. Is that not my right? Only you, Jim, you're telling me that you have a right to come into my house against my wishes, unvaccinated, and place me at risk? Because it's not just my house. Supposing I'm in a restaurant. Am I not allowed to go to a restaurant without having risk? That's a Jim. Have some guts, sir. Respond to my questions. They're fair questions here.
So, of course, we are dealing with a bit of a delay between when you say it and I hear it in the studio when it finally, makes its way out to Facebook, which is where Jim's listening. Jim has followed up. He says, what about a psychopath that has to be on meds? Should he or she have to prove that he or she is on meds?
I mean, that's a stupid response. If you can't do better than that, forget it, Jim. Okay? I assume that you are capable of making a rational response. I assumed incorrectly, for which I apologize. On a different topic, because we're almost out of time here. Folks, what should we do with our light rail system? I mean, it's problem after problem after problem. You can't rely on it. What I don't understand is Montreal installed a subway system, a metro system, that's about 5 times longer with 7 times more stops than the Ottawa light rail system. They did it in about half the time. It took them only about 2 years to create this. It's now been operational for some 45 years with hardly a problem. Our system's been operating for only about 2 years, and it's been problem after problem after problem. Can you imagine what would happen to Montreal Transit if, as happened here in Ottawa, the metro shut down for a solid week? I mean, Montreal traffic would be just totally catastrophic. Not that it isn't already. But I don't understand why Montreal could do it and much less time, much bigger system, much more complicated system, and almost no problems. It took us twice as long to create 1/5 the distance at about 3 times the cost, and we've got 10 times the problems. What are we going to do? And I just want to point out that not only that, but we're going to continue using the same people to expand this thing even more. Oh, yeah. I don't know. What is it? Is it Ottawa? Who do you blame? Who do you think is responsible here? I mean, who should be hung, strung, put in bed, and a skin of their arse pulled over their head on this one? All right, I have to get a word in here. For Centennial Glass, our good friends at Centennial Glass. Yes, they will respond to emergencies of all kinds. And yes, they in many cases now, sometimes people think, oh, well, these are big people. They only deal with big jobs. No, they do a lot of household work, emergency work. Somebody vandalized. I see there's somebody vandalized a store window, I guess, overnight down on Sussex. I don't know if Centennial did the job or not, but that's the kind of job that they do. They do it immediately, 24-hour emergency service. If you need emergency service, they've got it. Prices are very, very reasonable. They know the market very well. They understand what the competitor is charging, so they make sure that they are very, very competitive. And when it comes to warranties, which is very important, the best in the business. Centennial Glass, they're on Industrial Avenue near the train yards and in good old Renfrew, Centennial. Yes, John, more texts.
Lisa is on Facebook. She says she loves it when you swear. Lol.
I just, you know what? I don't like swear. I'm not a profane man.
No, I know.
But there are times when there are words which I think best express my sentiment on something.
Nope, I totally agree. I get it, and it's very effective when used, in those circumstances.
Judiciously.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I was fishing for. Or one like it. I'm not that eloquent, of course. As he stumbles trying to say eloquent. We're all over the place here with a couple of subjects on the go. So let's go to Todd, who says that's because Ottawa bought the lattas of the train world. Peter says light rail has been a problem in every city that a Liberal mayor runs in. Wonder why. Unelect Liberal corrupt mayors next year. Jennifer says scrap the LRT. I live in Hamilton and they are still fighting to bring this in. It destroyed businesses in Kitchener and will make our lives hell. Some of the comments on LRT.
Excuse me, we're almost out of time. I have to tell you a little joke. No, I'm going to be a little profane here, but I'm also
Get
going
ready,
to be
Lisa.
accurate.
Get
I will
ready,
never
Lisa.
forget. There was a time when people in Ottawa were actually buying Lada cars. I followed one in on the Queensway one morning, and it was pumping out all kinds of black smoke. Okay, and I loved the sticker on the back bumper. It said, "My other car is a piece of shit too." Yes, I have another story about Ladas, but I won't tell it now. Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.